This is the Forbidden City. The year is 1712, the 51st year of Emperor Kangxi's reign. Forget the dramatized romances and the modern tourist crowds. At this peak of disciplined power, every action is governed by strict protocol and absolute hierarchy. You're seeing this world through the eyes of Lady Niohuru. A young woman of 20, she has served as a Giran noble lady for nearly 2 years. She is no longer a newcomer, yet she remains a minor figure in a vast, complex system. Based on historical court regulations and Qing archival records, we reconstruct the daily life of this junior consort. It is an existence of rigid order, from the precise etiquette of her morning greetings to the specific rations of meat and coal allotted to her rank. This is not a legend. It is the calculated, silent reality of the great Qing Empire. Follow in the footsteps of Lady Niohuru to see what life was truly like. The year is 1712, the 51st year of Emperor Kangxi's reign. The Forbidden City is the epicenter of the Nine Lords' War, the most brutal struggle for the throne in Qing history. You are Lady Niohuru, 19 years old. For nearly 2 years you have held the rank of Giran Noble Lady, a mid to low position that offers little protection. Your family belongs to the Bordered Blue Banner, a clan with a respectable lineage, but insufficient political power to shield you from the palace's lethal internal schemes. In this atmosphere of paranoia, every move you make is watched by factions of the various princes looking for any weakness to exploit. Life in the Forbidden City is a relentless occupation, disguised as a privilege. Emperor Kangxi is a ruler defined by his absolute devotion to Confucian order and rigid hierarchy. Under his reign, the internal regulations of the palace have reached a level of suffocating military-like perfection. To a modern observer, this society is a profound shock. Absolute submission is the highest virtue, while any spark of personal freedom is viewed as a sin. Each meal is a display of imperial abundance, 30 dishes of braised venison and Manchu milk cakes served by kneeling eunuchs. Bird's nest soup arrives in vermilion lacquer boxes, and tribute fruits are brought from thousands of miles away in the south. Yet this is not a personal feast. Before a single morsel touches your lips, silver needles are dipped into every bowl to test for poison, and maids must taste the food in your presence. Every bite you take is officially recorded by a supervising eunuch. You are adorned in Suzhou silks that took months to embroider, balanced on high platform shoes that make every step a physical challenge, while a team of servants stands ready to adjust your robes. At night, the luxury fades into a haunting silence, broken only by the rhythmic wooden clappers of the palace patrols. Even the most intimate moments are governed by protocol. If your name is selected on a jade tablet, you are stripped of your jewelry, searched for concealed weapons, and wrapped in a silk quilt to be carried by eunuchs to the emperor's bed. This is not a romantic encounter, but a highly regulated ritual. Most chillingly, the right to motherhood is not yours to claim. After the night ends, if the emperor does not wish for a child, a eunuch will apply pressure to specific acupoints to ensure your body rejects any chance of conception. In this palace, even your womb is property of the state. You have learned to survive the palace's daily grind. But what happens when your body is no longer yours, but a vessel for the empire's future? Let's see how a miracle becomes a prison. If your first 2 years were a test of endurance, your pregnancy transforms that discipline into total confinement. You are no longer a minor consort. You are a state project. In the eyes of the great Qing, your body is imperial property. Your status skyrockets, yet it feels like a heavy gilding on a cage. Your family is elevated from the bordered blue banner to the prestigious plain yellow banner, a leap in social caste that brings immense wealth but also paints a target on their backs. You are relocated to a secluded high-walled palace, fortified with thick felt curtains to block the lethal northern winds and braziers that burn through the night. The Imperial Academy of Medicine, establishes a permanent station at your gate. Your mornings are now clinical rituals. A rotating team of 3 physicians monitors your pulse, while maids record the exact temperature of your water, and eunuchs document your sleeping cycles down to the minute. However, this elevated care is 24/7 martial law. Privacy is a luxury of the past. A supervising eunuch stands in the corner of your room, brush in hand, recording every mouthful of food, every bowel movement, and even your emotional shifts. Even your spiritual life is mandated. You sit for hours as lamas chant sutras, the heavy smell of butter lamps filling the room until it becomes difficult to breathe. In this environment, consumption is an act of survival, not pleasure. You eat only what the physicians prescribe. Before any dish touches your lips, silver needles are plunged into the food to detect toxins, and a designated maid must taste every portion in your presence, waiting several minutes to ensure no reaction occurs. You are forced to eat strengthening stews of deer placenta and bitter herbs that leave a metallic coating in your throat. You begin to dread the very air you breathe. Knowing that a grain of musk hidden in an embroidered purse or a gift of poisoned silk could trigger a catastrophe. You scan every surface for danger, the scent of your room, the suspicious smoothness of a new robe, or a slight dampness on the stone steps of the courtyard. You are a prisoner of your own rank, carrying a child who is a pawn in the Nine Lords' War before they have even drawn their first breath. The 9 months of high-security confinement are nearing their end. As the labor begins, will the Forbidden City offer you a family or just a transaction? Let's witness the brutal reality of an imperial birth. In the Forbidden City, the birth of a child is not a family milestone. It is a clinical achievement of the state. As Lady Nyohuru, the moment you enter labor, you are treated as a distinguished servant of the dynasty. Every resource of the empire is concentrated within your birthing chamber, yet the atmosphere feels more like an execution than a celebration. The air in the room is suffocating thick with the scent of concentrated herbal decoctions and the dry heat of premium smokeless charcoal. You are sustained by 1,000-year-old ginseng and bloodbird's nest administered like fuel to a machine. If a prince is born, the impact is seismic. Signal fires are lit across the city. The Department of Imperial Household distributes massive rewards, and the entire court erupts in celebration. You have secured the lineage, and for a brief moment, you are the most protected woman in the Great Qing. However, behind this golden facade lies a brutal calculated detachment. Your labor is a public state-monitored event. Officials from the Palace Discipline Office and high-ranking eunuchs stand outside the heavy curtains, listening to every cry to verify the purity of the process. Midwives fill the room, acting more like inspectors than caregivers, ensuring no infant switching occurs. There is no room for a mother's dignity or a family's warmth. The cruelty reaches its peak the second the umbilical cord is cut. According to rigid Qing law, a consort of lower rank, a guirin, is considered legally unfit to raise her own child. This separation policy exists to prevent mothers from gaining political leverage over their sons. Before you can even touch his skin, a eunuch wraps the infant in imperial yellow silk and carries him away to be raised by a high-ranking consort in a different palace. Furthermore, you are strictly prohibited from breastfeeding. Your body must be preserved for the emperor's future summons, and the child must bond with the state, not your breast. On your very first night as a mother, the signal fires fade into the distance. You lie alone in a vast, silent hall, the smell of medicinal blood still lingering, while the wind howls through the red corridors. You have given the empire an heir, but the empire has erased your motherhood. You have given the empire an heir, but you have lost your son to the system. Now, as the lonely crown descends, what kind of woman will you become to stay alive? Let's see the final transformation of Lady Nyohuru. Your survival and the birth of a son bring the ultimate imperial reward, a promotion to the rank of pin consort. You're no longer a minor figure navigating the shadows. You have become the master of your own palace. You now possess the power of life and death over your servants, a dedicated retinue of eunuchs, and a private treasury overflowing with tribute silks and silver. Your name is officially inscribed in the imperial genealogy, securing your place in history forever. During your investiture ceremony, you stand in the grand courtyard, draped in phoenix-embroidered robes so heavy they feel like armor. A crown adorned with eastern pearls and kingfisher feathers weighs upon your brow as rows of eunuchs kneel in a sea of absolute silence at your feet, their foreheads touching the cold stone. But this success is the final nail in the coffin of your humanity. The child you carried for 9 months, whose every kick you felt in the lonely nights, now grows up calling a wet nurse mother. When he is brought to you, he addresses you as mother consort, a title defined by cold, rigid protocol rather than affection. Your scheduled meetings are brief artificial performances in the main hall, with supervising eunuchs standing inches behind you to record every word and gesture in the palace archives. You realize with a hollow ache that your son is being raised not to love you, but to serve as a weapon for the faction that controls his education, to survive the closing jaws of the Nine Lords' War. The gentle woman you once were has been systematically erased. You have evolved into a cold strategist who bribes the Department of Household Affairs to intercept letters plants, spies in the tea rooms of rival palaces, and orchestrates the downfall of younger consorts with a single whispered rumor before they can even threaten your position. You no longer see your son as a child to be held, but as your ultimate insurance policy, a political shield to be polished and guarded. In the quiet hours of the night, you sit before your bronze mirror, removing the heavy jewelry that leaves red marks on your skin. Standing on the high balconies of the Forbidden City, as the freezing wind sweeps snow across the endless golden roofs, the realization is absolute. This magnificent court robe is your eternal shroud. You have successfully navigated the bloodiest succession crisis in history, but in the process, you have become part of the very machine that crushed your spirit. You have won the battle for the throne, but you have lost the war for your soul.